Welcome to Morrison Madness. I'm Don.
I'm LaShelle. What are we talking about tonight?
Well,
I say tonight. These release on Monday morning. That's funny, but okay. It's tonight while we're recording.
Right. So, one of the things that we had a long talk about when we were dating before we got married was parenting styles.
Yeah.
So, I thought maybe that would be something that we could talk about because we do not parent alike at all.
No, but we're more similar than not in many ways. There's a lot of things that we agree upon when it comes to parenting, but we parent differently. I know it's weird to say it that way, but...
Yeah, we agree on the basics of how kids should be raised and how they should grow up, but...
Right.
Yeah, our implementation of things is way different.
Sure.
So, do you remember any of our conversations?
Yes and no. The stuff that I remember is the things that we talked about we agreed upon. You know, that the kids needed to try things out and see what they liked and see what they didn't like and not necessarily be forced into it, but if they joined something, they should finish out that season because we didn't want them to just feel like they could quit anything at any point in time. They made a commitment.
But before that, we talked about how we were raised.
Yeah.
And the fact that there were things that...
We were raised similarly and yet very different.
Yes. And so there were things that our parents did that we didn't like.
Right.
And then things that our
I
parents
think everybody
did.
has that.
Right.
Yeah.
And things that our parents... But most people don't discuss it. Most people don't talk about it and address...
They don't?
No, they just turn out just like their parents. And then they wonder why their kids are rotten.
Because they were rotten. I think it would be weird to me to think about marrying somebody and not talk about how to raise kids or
think
what
about
your parenting style
think
would
about
be.
people who grow up that are abusive because their parents were abusive.
Oh yeah,
they don't change. They don't take or
Right.
people who grow up alcoholics because their parents were alcoholics.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Right.
We had long discussions about that.
Sure.
So the bad things, or not necessarily bad things, but the things that we didn't like about our parents, we talked about. We don't want to do those things. We don't want to become those things or those people. And then the things that we liked that our parents did, we wanted to try and focus on those and do those things because we thought that's good parenting. That will raise good children because the ultimate goal is you're raising your child to do what?
To be a better adult.
And eventually, usually become a parent.
Right.
You know?
Possibly, yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's true.
That's survival of the species.
No, right.
So if everybody raised a bunch of idiots, sooner or later the species is going to die off.
There's a movie about that. Right?
I know, right? Isn't it called Idiocracy?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so some of us have to raise some, halfway intelligent.
Or we have to put somebody in freezer.
Right, cryogenic.
There you go, that's
Absolutely.
what it's called. And don't stick somebody in a regular freezer, that'd be bad, but
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we agreed that, they should be allowed to try many things and we should always, and it didn't matter what they wanted to try, we should try and nourish that and foster it and
right.
try to help it grow. And then, yeah, if they started something, they shouldn't drop out in the middle.
Especially if there's a fee, which around here, everything had a fee. And so they needed to understand that if you're going to join something, you're doing it for the season.
Right.
You only have to do it for the one season, but you have to do it for the whole season.
Right.
Kind of thing. Or the whole year if it's a year commitment or what have you. But you made a commitment to that thing, you need to stick with it.
Right.
So.
And then...
Unless there's an injury. We did have a couple of those where they would, like Grace, I think, joined cross country and then she had an injury to her foot. And then she was just kind of out for the season. That's understandable.
Right.
You're not going to make her run on a hurt foot.
We disagree about, like, punishments, consequences.
Yes.
You grew up with this whole thing of, we're going to sit around and talk about what you did wrong, how it was wrong, how you could have done it differently.
Yes.
And
it worked.
And it was one thing about how you threw the napkin on the floor next to the garbage can and didn't pick it up, and that took 6 months of
sometimes
table conversation.
It's not quite that bad, but yeah.
Well, yes, I know. I'm over exaggerating.
Yes.
Whereas, I'm apt to grab the kid, yell at him.
Yes.
Take him over to the garbage can, bend him over in front of it, say, "See that?" Pick it up, throw it away, and then yeah, ground them for 2 years.
Right, which works when there's the napkin on the floor, but when it's a bigger life mistake, you can't just grab the child and go, see that? It doesn't work. I mean, there's only certain things that works with. So sometimes when it's a bigger life event, you have to talk it out because you can't just stick their nose in it.
Being a child who was grounded often.
Which I never was. My parents didn't believe in grounding.
I can tell you that grounding worked to an extent.
Sure.
And I feel like it's the whole deterrent punishment theory.
Yeah.
Right?
It's part of behaviorism.
It's like being incarcerated or the death penalty.
Sure.
It's deterrent punishment.
Sure.
If you know that this is the consequence. The issue that happened with me is I would weigh what I was going to do and whether
it was worth it to get grounded. And you're not the only child to do that. I had lots of friends that would do that. In fact, one of my friends, his grounding was not just that he's grounded and has to stay home. He would be grounded and have to read a book and write a book report on it. And it would have something to do with something similar to why he was in trouble usually. And he was always breaking the rule and doing what he wasn't supposed to do
because he was liked to write book reports.
He liked to read, and so he was like, it really isn't that big of an issue.
I like to read too, but I didn't like to write book reports.
And so and he didn't have a problem writing, and so he was like, whatever, I'll just write it. It's not a problem. And so then he was like, well, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do anything after school for the week, but neither are any of my friends because we're all in activities or whatever, and so I'll just pull an all-nighter and get it done, and then I'll go out again next weekend. And that was kind of his way of doing stuff. And
I was still, even if I would have written the book report, I was still grounded for...
Oh, yeah, no, he was only grounded until the book report was done.
Yeah, that's not really being grounded.
So, and again, I know that some people had groundings where they were grounded for a few weeks or what have you, and they were like, well, this party's only going to happen this time, and nothing's happening for the next 3 weeks, so I don't care if I'm grounded for the next 3 weeks. I'm going out tonight.
I know I have a little bit of COVID brain, and so some things are a little fuzzy, and time does, haze the memory. But I swear to God, there was a period of time in high school where I was grounded for at least 2 months.
That does not surprise me.
And I don't even remember what I did.
There's times that I would like to ground you for more than 2 months. Does that still work?
I remember the biggest one was my parents were going out of town graduation weekend.
Yeah.
And I think I was a junior. Could have been a sophomore, but I'm pretty sure I was a junior. And so I had a lot of friends who were graduating.
Right. Well, and you were in a small town. You were in the same school from kindergarten through graduation. So you knew seniors way earlier.
I was told by my parents that I was not allowed to go to any parties. And at the time, my cousin lived with me.
And they thought that would work? That's the crazy thing.
Well, yeah, because they said if you go, you're going to get grounded. And I feel like this is one of those times where, not just for a week, you go, you're grounded for a month. I remember my mom just like going on and on and on about it.
Huh.
And then after they left, I'm getting ready to go to these parties, and my cousin lived with us at the time.
Right.
And Derek is like, I'm not covering for you this time. I'm like, I'm not asking you to. Well, you're going to get grounded. Yep. And you don't care. Nope. He said, I'm not covering for you. I said, I don't expect you to. I got this. Trust me, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
So I was gone most of the day. I feel like parties started around 11 o'clock.
You're also a strange individual, and I think you were a strange child in the fact that you cannot lie. Like, you can't keep a secret. You can't even buy me a present and try and hide it for a week because you feel like you're lying. And then you come clean. Like, you just can't do it.
But if you ask my parents when I was younger, not high school, but when I was younger, I would try to lie. And apparently I was not a good liar. I'm a horrible liar.
You are.
Great. That's good to know.
No, but it's a good thing to a certain extent, but you don't like the idea of keeping a secret. Even if it's a good secret, like hiding a gift for somebody. You have a hard time keeping a secret like that.
Well, and that's because part of it is...
And lying to you is like keeping a secret.
Part of it is because of my ADD.
Yes.
I can't remember.
Can't remember the story.
Right? So if it actually happened, then I don't have to, try and remember it because it happened. That's a memory. It's not
right.
It's not something that I have to make up.
Right.
If I'm gonna be a person who's gonna start lying, I'm gonna have to make detailed notes and go back and review my notes all the fucking time. And where am I gonna keep my notes? someplace where I'll lose them.
Right.
Or somebody would find them.
Yes.
Right. So it's just not worth the hassle, is my opinion.
No, right.
I don't.
No, and I get that. But again, I feel like knowing other people, friends of mine, things that they had no problems trying to lie. So like your parents go out of town for the weekend, you went to these graduation parties. When your parents came back to town, you're like, they asked, did you go to the graduation party? And you're like, yep.
Oh,
like,
no, they were home before me. Where have you been? I was at the graduation parties.
See, and
my parents would ask me, and not my dad. My dad wasn't too worried about stuff, but my mom would ask me questions.
Yeah.
Right? So I heard this such and such person in town, people are talking about him. They're a pot smoker. And I know you've run around with him. Do you smoke pot? I said, Mom, why would you ask me questions that you don't really want the answer to?
Oh, that's just admitting it.
I didn't admit anything. I said, do you really want to know the answer? And then she would stop and think about it. And then she would be like, no, I don't. We didn't even have this conversation. She would just walk away.
Yeah, see, and there's no way that my parents, either one, I feel like, would be able to do that.
And at the time that she asked me, I had never tried any illegal substances except alcohol.
Then why do you respond that way?
Because there are questions that I'm not going to ask my kids. Okay. I don't want to know the answer to them.
Okay.
There are some things I don't care.
Huh. Okay.
I'm just saying.
Sure.
I don't want to call out things because I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable. But I mean, right. I'm not going to ask any of my kids if they've had sex. I don't need to know.
Right.
I taught them about sex, taught them how to be safe. They learned about it in school.
Right.
If they came to me because there was an issue, I'm there for them.
Yes.
But I don't feel like that's a conversation that we need to sit around and have.
Yeah, and I don't feel like an interrogation thing is needed or anything that way. I agree with that.
And I never did it, no matter how old they were.
Right.
I just think there are some things you don't want to know the answer to. Sure. Have I asked my kids if they? Well, when you come home reeking like a skunk and your eyes are, blown up, it's pretty obvious.
Saucers.
I don't even need to ask. The only reason I asked was because I wanted to hear you lie to me.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So, and some of them think that they're great liars. And it's been proven to them over and over again that they're not.
No.
So.
They might get away with it for a day or two, but then it comes all crashing down on them and it doesn't work. So.
And we're both a firm believer in, if you get in trouble, hard work.
Oh, yes. Yes. But my thing is again, and I didn't have grounding. But I didn't have regular rules compared to the other kids in my grade, even kids older than me. Like everybody that I knew growing up had a curfew. You have to be home at X time. I never had a curfew. Every time I left the house, Mom asked, where are you heading? What's going on? What time do you think you're going to be home? And it wasn't a matter of that she, was going to check in on me wherever I was going. It was a matter of she wanted to know if I was leaving town, if I was over to a friend's house, if something happened and there was a problem, she wanted to know how to get a hold of me, that kind of a thing, right? And then, so like school dances, she knew I was going out to the school dance. What time is the dance over? Well, it's over at midnight. I'm just throwing out times. And then she's like, okay, do you think you're going to come home straight afterwards? No, there's probably a bunch of us that are going to go to Am Pride, which was the 24-hour diner truck stop in town, and we're going to go have something to eat. All right, will you call me when you get to Am Pride and then let me know how long you think you're going to be there, just so I have a general idea of what time you'll get home? Yes, and I was the only freshman that went out to eat with all the seniors because I didn't have a curfew.
I never had a curfew either.
But the other students that I was in the same grade or whatever, like there were students that got picked up at the dance at 11 o'clock because their curfew was 11 o'clock, even though the dance went until midnight kind of thing. And my mom's like, I don't want you to have to leave the party because you have a curfew. However, I also don't want you sneaking out and trying to go somewhere that's going to be a danger to yourself. And that was the whole point of the discussion stuff. We didn't have groundings. We had, if something went wrong, if you got in trouble in some way, understanding why it was wrong, how it was wrong, how you can avoid that situation in the future, because usually it was a matter of a safety issue or something along those lines. It wasn't, if it was I didn't make the garbage can kind of example like you used earlier, then it was absolutely, we didn't just talk about that. It was go pick that up and do it again. If I was supposed to clean the bathroom and I did a crappy job of it, I got to clean the bathroom again until it was spotless, and sometimes more than spotless, because then that way I understood, don't do a crappy job the first time, do it right. So, it was one of those kind of things that the discussions were there so that way you understood why. And it was a deterrent.
Well, we had discussions too, but they were short and sweet.
Yes,
Usually ended up with me being grounded and scared to death.
But the discussions were the deterrent, because you didn't want to have to spend your dinner time discussing how you suck as a human being kind of thing, right? You wanted to be able to talk about the fun things that were going on or whatever and joke around with your family and not have to sit and listen. Like my brother got more of the discussions, and he was older. So I learned a lot through him. Like I don't remember having a whole lot of, LaShelle, this was wrong, and it was wrong, and how was it wrong? And I don't remember those discussions. I remember sitting in on my brother's discussions. And so I learned 6 years before my time, don't do this when you're in middle school kind of thing.
My mom would lecture me. My dad would just ask me,
but there's
how
a
flippin' stupid are you?
But there's a difference between lecturing and having a discussion. The discussion wasn't a lecture. It was, I'm asking you a question. You need to think about this and answer it. And I used the same concept when I lifeguarded. So in lifeguarding, and this is a very typical lifeguarding thing, when somebody does something wrong in the pool, whether it's horseplay or what have you, they make you sit out for X number of minutes.
Grounding.
Like a grounding, exactly. They ground you from the pool for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it may be. And if it's really bad, you're sent home for the day. And I would always make the kids get out and sit on the bench near me, and then they would ask, 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm like, I don't know yet. And I wouldn't tell them. And I would always wait just a couple minutes. It wouldn't even be a full 5 minutes. And then I would call them up to me, and I was like, all right, I want you to give me 3 reasons as to why I pulled you out of the pool and how it was wrong, what could have gone wrong, why we don't have people do that, why is it a rule? I need 3 reasons as to why that's a rule. Once you have those 3 reasons, you can get back in the pool. So a lot of times the kids that got pulled out by me weren't out as long as the other areas, and then I had the least amount of infractions in my area, because every time they were going to do an infraction, they would remember all of the reasons as to why they shouldn't do those infractions, and then they wouldn't want to have to tell me those things again because they had just told me 10 minutes before or whatever. So I had kids actually come up and tell other people that. So it worked. Yeah.
I don't even understand how that can work.
You're just holding your head. That's funny.
I don't even understand how that works. So there is a train trestle not too far from here that goes across the river.
What? A train trestle? What's a train trestle?
A train bridge with tracks.
Bridge. Okay. I've never heard it called a trestle.
I'm sorry.
I don't have the vocabulary that you do. You know this.
So when I was younger, it was a big thing to go down there, and my grandpa lived not very far from there, right? And you would jump off the train bridge into the river.
Okay.
So very dangerous.
Yes.
You don't know what's in the river.
Correct.
Right? Well, at one point, somebody jumped off of there and hit their head and died.
Yeah.
That, you would think that would be a deterrent. What, as a parent, parents are saying, why should you not jump off what happened to your friend that jumped off of the bridge?
It should be, if you can actually learn from your mistakes.
Do you think that I still didn't jump off of that bridge?
No, I'm sure you did, because you don't have a fear of getting hurt. And that's part of the problem.
I have a fear of getting hurt.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
This has devolved away from parenting into how many ways Don is broken.
That is 99% of our discussions.
I'm just saying
that
you, as a child, as an adult, I mean that's part of growing as a child into an adult, is weighing the consequences.
Yes. And
part of the thrill of jumping off of the bridge into the water is a little bit of that unknown. You have that free fall. That's why people jump out of airplanes. I mean, talk about something stupid. I realize it's a slim chance that your parachute's not going to open, but when it doesn't.
No, right. Right.
It's not the fall that kills you.
It's the adrenaline that people are searching for in that stuff. Yes, absolutely. But there has been, even in psychology, and I remember sitting in a psychology class at a community college, and so I was, I think, still in high school. I was taking it as a summer course before I was going to college, and there were adults that had kids in the class, And all the adults were like, you can't reason with anybody before the age of 7.
And yes, you can.
Exactly. And that was my response. I said, yes, you can. I said, if you haven't tried to reason with them, you're not going to be able to. But if you start to reason with a child right away, believe me, they learn consequences.
Yes, you can reason with a child at 3 and 4. And yes, they learn consequences.
As soon as they understand language, they're going to be able to reason. They're reasoning before they understand language, which has been proven with sign language, because you have kids talking in full sentences using sign language. They just can't control their vocal cords.
Right.
So it is definitely one of those things that my feeling is, and part of it is the kids were already, your kids were already older. If they had been used to having those discussions of consequences, my parenting style, from the time that they were super little.
Well, maybe, but you're getting into whole nother topic.
Right. But then they would have been able to deal with that better and go through that discussion quicker, faster, understand, learn faster.
Back to what we were talking about.
Okay.
So we tried to take, in our conversations, we decided that we wanted to take the best, of each of our parents.
Absolutely.
Right? And throw out the worst of each of our parents. I wouldn't say that we were successful 100% of the time, but I think we did a really good job of pulling the best from each of our parents and use that as being a parent, trying to teach our children, not just in consequential ways, but in everything about how to do things.
Yeah, how to cook, how to work outside,
how to build tools, yep, how to
clean the house,
all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't, and I'm sure my mom feels the same way. My dad has passed away, but I'm pretty sure my dad felt the same way. I don't feel like, and my oldest is going to be 32.
Right.
33.
Sure.
I don't feel like...
He just had a birthday. No, he's having a birthday at the end of this month. He's
having a birthday, yeah.
Okay.
I don't feel like, as a parent, that you ever feel like you're done...
Parenting?
Teaching them and parenting them.
No,
you don't. You're done grounding them, you're done bossing them around, but you're still there to teach them things that they may not know about.
Yes.
And they're going to get that from other people in their life as well, but as a parent, you're never done parenting.
Correct. But I think part of that too is we're both learners. We both want to learn things all the time. We're not the type of person to be like, I'm done. I know what I know, and this is all I want to do, and I don't want to learn something new tomorrow. We always want to look for something new to learn, and I think other people don't necessarily. And so then that's part of, because we're learners, we're teachers.
Yeah.
It's part of our DNA in that way, that if we're learning something new, we want to teach other people about it.
Right. So I think this is a good stopping point. If you come back, hopefully you come back. The next...
we scared them all off.
The next episode, which LaShelle started to touch on,
or do we need to... Oh, we're going to... Okay. I didn't know what we were doing.
That you started to touch on was the fact that, like you said, I had 4 kids and you came into this...
Yeah.
And Instamom. Right. So that will be our next topic for the following week. So thanks for joining us for this episode.
Yeah, thanks.
Again, follow us on all the social medias. Please give us your comments about things that you like about the show, and even things that you don't like about the show. We're always looking for ways to change things, things to improve. If there's stuff that you want us to talk about.
Right.
I really want to get into doing some product reviews, so we're looking for ideas on some product reviews. But again, thanks for joining us. I'm Don.
I'm LaShelle. We're Morrison Madness, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and YouTube. We'll have all those links and the stuff. So hopefully you're enjoying this, and we'll see you next time.